Good evening, everyone. I am Zifruddin Zidan, your host for today's talk show. Welcome to Teenagers in Crisis Breaking the Cycle. Tonight, we are going to have an in depth conversation about some of the biggest challenges faced by Malaysian teenagers. These challenges affect not only their physical health but also their emotional and psychological well being. Teenagers today live in an environment that is vastly different from what previous generations experienced. They are growing up in a fast paced digital world where they are constantly bombarded with social pressures, academic stress, and conflicting messages about health and well being. Many of them are struggling with weight issues, unhealthy habits, and mental health concerns. But rather than receiving support, they are often met with criticism and blame. Society tends to label them as lazy, irresponsible, or lacking self control. But is it really that simple? Are these issues just the result of bad choices, or is there something deeper going on? Tonight, we will be focusing on three major issues that have become increasingly prevalent among teenagers in Malaysia. First, we have teenage obesity. Second, smoking. And the third one is childhood trauma. These problems are often treated as separate issues, but in reality, they are deeply interconnected. Many teenagers who struggle with obesity or smoking are not simply making poor lifestyle choices, but they are also using these behaviors as coping mechanisms to deal with stress, anxiety, and unresolved emotional wounds. If we truly want to address these problems, we need to understand the root causes rather than just treating the symptoms. To help us unpack these issues, I am joined by two experts who have spent years working in their respective fields. Ms. Badaria Sofia, a public health expert specializing in teenage obesity, will help us understand the growing obesity crisis and the factors contributing to it. Meanwhile, Ms. Irina Wahida, a child and family therapist, will provide insight into how childhood trauma influences behavior and what support systems are needed to help teenagers heal. This is going to be an important and insightful discussion. So, without further ado, let's begin.
Thank you, Mr. Zidane. Hello, everyone. I'm Miss Badaria. So today, I want to talk about a growing health crisis in Malaysia, which is teenage obesity. Over the past decade, obesity rates among Malaysian teenagers have risen at an alarming rate. The National Health and Morbidity Survey 2022 reported that approximately 1 in 3 Malaysian adolescents is either overweight or obese. This is a serious issue because obesity is not just about appearance, it has significant health, psychological, and social consequences. So, what is causing this rise in obesity? How does it impact our teenagers? And most importantly, what can we do to stop it? These are questions I will address today. One of the biggest reasons for the increase in obesity among Malaysian teenagers is unhealthy eating habits. Fast food has become easily available and is aggressively marketed to teenagers through advertisements and social media influences. Many young people consume excessive amount of sugary drinks and processed snacks without realizing how much sugar, fat, and empty calories they are putting into their bodies. Parents and schools also play a role in this issue because many lack proper nutritional education to guide children toward healthier eating habits. When unhealthy food becomes the norm in daily life, it's no surprise that obesity rates are on the rise. Another major cause of obesity is a sedentary lifestyle. Many teenagers today spend hours sitting in front of screens, whether it's playing video games, scrolling through social media, or watching online content. Outdoors activities and exercise are becoming less common, partly because of limited access to safe recreational spaces and partly because of the increasing appeal of digital entertainment. With less movement and physical activity, the body burns fewer calories, leading to excess energy being stored as fat. In addition to unhealthy eating and lack of physical activity, genetic and psychological factors also play a role in teenage obesity. Some teenagers may have a genetic predisposition that make it easier for them to gain weight, which means they need to be extra careful with their diet and exercise habit. Psychological issues such as stress, anxiety, and depression can also contribute to obesity. Many teenagers turn to food for comfort, using eating as a way to cope with their emotion. Unfortunately, emotional eating often involves consuming unhealthy, high-calorie food which only worsens the problem. The effects of teenage obesity extend far beyond just being overweight. The health risks are serious and should not be ignored. Obesity increases the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure, which the condition that were once considered about adult disease but are now appearing in teenagers. Studies have shown that around 30% of obese teenagers have high blood pressure, which significantly increases their risk of heart-related issues in adulthood. If we do not address obesity in teenagers now, we are setting them up for severe health complications later in life. Beyond physical health, obesity also has a major psychological impact. Teenagers who are overweight often face bullying, social isolation, and discrimination. This can lead to low self-esteem and, in some cases, even depression and anxiety. Many young people who struggle with their weight find it difficult to participate in social activities, which makes them feel even more isolated. The emotional toll of obesity can be just as damaging as the physical consequences. The long-term consequences of teenage obesity are also alarming. If obesity is not controlled during adolescence, it often continues into adulthood, making it even harder to reverse. This leads to further health complications, reduced quality of life, and increased healthcare costs. Without intervention, many teenagers who are obese today will grow into adults who suffer from chronic illnesses, further straining Malaysia's healthcare system. With all this risk in mind, the question we need to ask is, what can we do to stop teenage obesity in Malaysia? The good news is that there are solutions, and change is possible if we take the right steps. One of the most important things we can do is change the way obesity is presented in the media and society. Social media influencers, for example, have a major impact on teenagers, and instead of promoting fast food and unhealthy eating challenges, they should use their platforms to encourage healthy eating habits. At the same time, schools, parents, and community leaders need to launch awareness campaigns that educate teenagers about dangers of obesity and the benefits of maintaining a healthy lifestyle. The government also plays a crucial role in this issue. More policies should be implemented to promote healthier food choices. Programs like Menu Rahmah, which offer affordable nutritious meals, should be reinstated and expanded. Schools should also have stricter food policies to ensure that unhealthy snacks and sugary drinks are not easily available in canteens. By creating an environment where healthy food choices are encouraged, we can help teenagers develop better eating habits. Encouraging physical activity is another key step in preventing obesity. Schools should make physical education not only compulsory but also engaging, so that students enjoy participating in sports and exercises rather than seeing them as a burden. Local governments should invest in creating and maintaining public parks and recreational areas, making it easier for families and teenagers to be active. At home, parents should set screen time limits and encourage their children to engage in outdoor activities. Simple lifestyle changes, such as walking to schools or playing a sport, can make a big difference in reducing obesity rates. Finally, nutritional education must become a priority. Many teenagers do not fully understand what is in the food they eat, and they often make unhealthy choices simply because they lack awareness. Schools should teach students about balanced diets, the dangers of excessive sugar and fat consumption, and how to make healthier food choices. Parents should also take an active role by cooking nutritious meals at home instead of relying on fast food. When teenagers are given the right knowledge and tools, they will be more likely to make better choices for their health. To conclude, teenage obesity in Malaysia is a serious problem, but it is not impossible to solve. By addressing unhealthy diets, reducing sedentary lifestyles, and providing the right support systems, we can help teenagers make better choices for their health. This is not just an individual issue, it is a societal challenge that requires action from families, school, communities, and the government. If we want a healthier future for our youth, we must start making changes now. Obesity is preventable, and together we can ensure that Malaysian teenagers grow up healthier, happier, and free from the burden of obesity. Let's take responsibility and work toward a brighter future.
Now, I would like to talk about a pressing issue that has been affecting teenagers in Malaysia for years. The issue is the growing trend of smoking among young people. Despite ongoing awareness campaigns, strict regulations, and government efforts to curb tobacco consumption, many teenagers are still picking up the habit of smoking at an early age. This is a serious public health concern that we must address. The tobacco industry in Malaysia is a multi-billion-dollar market dominated by multinational companies. Alongside the legal trade, the illegal cigarette market has grown significantly, making up about one-fifth of the industry. While the government has implemented numerous anti-smoking measures, such as banning advertisements, restricting sales to minors, and introducing strict tobacco regulations, smoking among teenagers continues to rise. The troubling reality is that many individuals start smoking before they even reach adulthood, often under the age of 18. Studies indicate that peer pressure, family influence, psychological stress, and easy accessibility to cigarettes all play crucial roles in encouraging young people to smoke. Let's start with peer pressure, one of the most significant factors. Adolescents naturally want to fit in with their social groups, and smoking is sometimes seen as a way to gain acceptance. If a teenager's friends or classmates smoke, they are more likely to experiment with cigarettes themselves. In school settings, smoking is often perceived as a symbol of maturity, rebelliousness, or even popularity. Research has shown that peer influence is a powerful force in shaping a teenager's behavior. Many young people pick up smoking not because they want to, but because they feel pressured by their social circle. Another crucial factor is family influence. The home environment plays a significant role in shaping a teenager's attitude toward smoking. If parents or older siblings smoke, there is a higher chance that teenagers will adopt the same habit. When smoking is normalized in a household, children grow up seeing it as an acceptable behavior rather than a dangerous addiction. In some cases, a lack of parental supervision can also contribute to smoking initiation. Teenagers from families with poor parental guidance are more likely to engage in risky behaviors, including smoking. However, families that actively educate their children about the dangers of smoking and enforce strict rules against it are more successful in preventing teenagers from taking up this habit. Now, let's talk about psychological stress and mental health. Many teenagers turn to smoking as a coping mechanism for stress, anxiety, and depression. Academic pressure, family issues, and personal struggles can push adolescents to seek relief in smoking. Unfortunately, many young people mistakenly believe that smoking helps them relax and reduce stress. In reality, nicotine addiction only worsens anxiety over time. Meanwhile, studies have shown that teenagers who experience high levels of stress are twice as likely to start smoking compared to their less stressed peers. This highlights the importance of mental health awareness in schools and at home. Parents, teachers, and counselors should provide teenagers with healthy ways to manage stress, such as engaging in sport, meditation, or creative activities. One of the most concerning factors is the easy accessibility of cigarettes. Even though Malaysia has strict tobacco control policies, many teenagers still manage to get their hands on cigarettes. Some even obtain them from older family members or friends, while others buy them from small retailers who ignore the age restrictions. The rise of e-cigarettes and vaping has further complicated the issue. Many teenagers believe that vaping is a safer alternative to smoking, but this is far from the truth. Vaping products contain nicotine and harmful chemicals that can lead to addiction and long-term health problems. It is just as worse as smoking. So, the government has attempted to regulate e-cigarettes, but these products continue to evolve, making enforcement increasingly difficult. Now, let's consider the consequences of teenage smoking. The health effects of smoking are well documented and they are severe. Smoking is linked to lung cancer, heart disease, and other chronic illness. Since nicotine addiction develops more quickly in teenagers, they are at a higher risk of long-term health complications. Studies have shown that teenage smokers have reduced lung function and slow physical development compared to non-smokers. Additionally, secondhand smoke exposes others to harmful chemicals, increasing their risk of respiratory diseases. Apart from health risks, smoking also has a negative impact on the environment. Many people do not realize that smoking contributes to pollution. Cigarette butts are among the most commonly discarded waste materials worldwide. These tiny filters contain toxic chemicals that seep into the soil and water, harming ecosystems. When cigarettes are improperly disposed of, they contaminate water sources, damage plant life, and even threaten wildlife. Furthermore, the chemicals released into the air through smoking contribute to air pollution, making it a serious environmental issue. So, what can we do to prevent smoking initiation among teenagers? Addressing this issue requires a multifaceted approach involving families, schools, communities, and the government. Parents should educate their children about the dangers of smoking and set a good example by avoiding tobacco use themselves, while schools should strengthen anti-smoking programs and provide mental health support to help students manage stress in healthier ways. Then the government should continue to tighten regulations, ensuring that retailers do not sell cigarettes to minors and imposing stricter penalties on those who violate the rule. At the community level, awareness campaigns and support groups can play a crucial role in discouraging teenagers from smoking. Peer mentorship programs can be effective in educating young people about the dangers of tobacco use. Then, encouraging healthy lifestyle choices such as sports and creative activities can also help divert teenagers away from smoking. In conclusion, smoking among teenagers remains a serious issue in Malaysia, influenced by peer pressure, family habits, psychological stress, and the easy accessibility of cigarettes. Despite its harmful effects, many adolescents continue to smoke due to social and environmental influences. The consequences of smoking are severe, affecting both individual health and environment. However, by working together, parents, schools, communities, and even the government, we can reduce teenage smoking rates and create a healthier future for our youth. It is up to us to educate, support, and protect the next generation from falling into this harmful habit. That is all from me. Thank you.
A famous British artist and explorer, Herbert Watts, once said, childhood abuse casts a shadow the length of a lifetime. This statement perfectly captures the profound and lasting impact of childhood abuse, especially on an individual's emotional well-being, self-worth, and interpersonal relationships. Today, I will be discussing the long-term effects of childhood abuse on emotional regulation in adults, particularly in Malaysia, and how we as a society can work toward a better support systems for survivors. In Malaysia, childhood abuse remains a concerning issue. The Social Welfare Department (JKM) reported that 4,469 cases of child abuse were recorded in 2023. However, the real number is likely much higher due to underreporting and the social stigma surrounding the child abuse. Many victims suffer in silence, fearing judgment or disbelief from their loved ones. The trauma of abuse does not simply fade with time. Instead, it follows survivors into adulthood, affecting their emotional stability, decision making, and relationships. The lack of immediate intervention can turn this unresolved trauma into a lifelong struggles. Childhood abuse comes in different forms: physical, emotional, and even sexual abuse. Each type leaves a deep psychological scars that can affect how individuals regulate their emotions and how they interact with the world. Research shows that extreme stress during childhood can alter brain development, particularly in areas responsible for processing emotions and decision making. This means that victims of childhood abuse are more likely to experience mood disorders, anxiety, and even physical health complications later in life. One of the most significant long-term effects of childhood abuse is emotional dysregulation. People who experience childhood trauma often find it difficult to control their emotions. They may struggle with sudden mood swings, intense emotional reactions, and difficulty calming down after stressful situations. Studies have shown that individuals who have faced childhood maltreatment are more likely to develop mental health disorders such as depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder. Additionally, they are at a higher risk in engaging in self-destructive behaviors, including substance abuse and even reckless decision making. Another major consequences of childhood abuse is its impact on cognitive function. According to research, this suggests that early adversity can lead to difficulties in attention, memory, and problem solving. This can have a direct impact on academic performance and even career growth. Imagine a child who has endured emotional neglect or even physical abuse. Such experience create a constant state of stress, making it difficult for the brain to develop properly. As adults, these individuals may struggle with making decisions, planning for the future, or even maintaining a stable employment. In Malaysia, mental health stigma remains a major obstacle for survivors of childhood abuse. Many people still view mental health struggles as a sign of weakness rather than a legitimate medical condition. As a result, many survivors may hesitate to seek help, fearing that they will be judged by their families or communities. This lack of support only worsens their struggles, leaving them trapped in a cycle of unresolved trauma. However, there is still hope. Psychological treatment such as cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) and emotion regulation training have proven to be effective in helping survivors manage their emotions and heal from their past experiences. CBT, for example, helps individuals identify negative thought patterns and develop a healthier ways of coping with stress and emotions. By providing survivors with access to these treatments, we can help them rebuild their lives and find a sense of stability. Another crucial factor in a survivor's healing journey is the role of interpersonal relationships. As we all know, humans are naturally social beings, and the quality of our relationships plays a significant role to our overall well-being. Unfortunately, individuals who have experienced childhood abuse often struggle with trust and intimacy. They may have difficulty forming a healthy romantic relationships or even maintaining a strong friendships due to their emotional instability. Research has shown that survivors of abuse are more likely to develop insecure attachment styles, meaning they may fear abandonment, struggle with jealousy, or have difficulty expressing their emotions. In the Malaysian cultural context, these challenges are further complicated by traditional beliefs. Many families in Malaysia prioritize unity and maintaining a positive family image. This often uh, this often results in survivors being pressured to forgive and forget their past abuse in order to preserve family harmony. While cultural values such as strong family ties can be beneficial, they can also prevent individuals from seeking justice and emotional support. Despite these challenges, many survivors manage to overcome their past trauma. The help of therapy, community support, and personal resilience. Resilience, in psychological terms, refers to the ability to adapt and recover from adversity. Studies have shown that resilience can be built over time through emotional support, self-care, and even professional intervention. In Malaysia, for example, organizations such as Malaysian Mental Health Association (MMHA) provide trauma-informed counseling and support group for survivors. These resources are invaluable in helping individuals reclaim control over their lives. Unfortunately, not all survivors have access to these services. Rural areas in Malaysia often lack mental health professionals, leaving many individuals without the help they desperately need. Additionally, financial limitations can make therapy unaffordable for many survivors. As a result, survivors in lower income communities may struggle to find proper support, further perpetuating the cycle of trauma. In addition to professional help, cultural and societal support also play a vital role in recovery process. Malaysia collectivist culture emphasizes the importance of family and community, which can be a source of strength for survivors. Especially in time of crisis, family members often come together to provide emotional and financial support. However, while cultural traditions such as herbal remedies and spiritual healing can offer comfort, they should not replace the professional mental health care in Malaysia. To truly support survivors, Malaysia must find a balance between traditional practice and modern mental health care. By integrating these approaches, we can create a more inclusive and effective support system by those affected by child abuse. Furthermore, increasing mental health awareness and breaking the stigma surrounding therapy will encourage more survivors to seek help without fear of judgment. In conclusion, childhood abuse leaves a lasting impact on emotional regulation, decision making, and interpersonal relationships. If left untreated, these effects can lead to severe mental health disorders, chronic illnesses, and even difficulties in maintaining a stable life. While therapy and support services can help, the stigma surrounding mental health in Malaysia remains a significant barrier. As a society, we must prioritize mental health awareness and improve access to psychological services, especially in rural areas. We need to create a safe environment where survivors feel more comfortable seeking help without shame or fear. By addressing these issues head on, we can break the cycle of trauma and pave the way for a healthier and more emotionally stable future for all. So, I leave you with this question. If we do not act now, how many more lives will be shaped by the unresolved trauma of the past? Thank you. What we have discovered in our combined decades of work is that the overweight teens sneaking junk food at midnight, the rebellious youth smoking behind school, and the withdrawn students cutting class are all responding to the same underlying pain our systems are failing to address. When we punish the smoking but ignore the depression driving it, shame the weight gain while neglecting the trauma beneath it, we are treating the symptoms while the disease spreads. So tonight, we will expose these connections and chart a better path forward.
The obesity statistics are alarming, where 1 in 3 Malaysian teens are now overweight. But the real tragedy is how we misunderstood this crisis. That lazy, gluttonous teens, society judge, is often an emotionally distressed child using food to cope, just as others might turn to cigarettes or self-harm. In our clinics, we see the same patterns repeatedly. The students stress eating through exam anxiety, the bullied child gaining weight as protection, the neglected teens finding comfort in junk food's dopamine rush. Their bodies bear the consequences of environments flooded with cheap processed foods, yet starved of emotional support. And crucially, the same teens are 40% more likely to take up smoking, not because they lack willpower, but because when food fails to numb their pain adequately, they seek other escapes. This is why traditional eat less, move more approaches fail. They ignore the trauma and stress that make unhealthy coping necessary in the first place.
Exactly, Miss Badaria. And just as obesity isn't simply about food, think smoking isn't really about tobacco. It is about Self-medication. The average Malaysian teen starts smoking at the age of 14, not because they want lung cancer at the age of 50, but because they are desperate for relief today from unbearable stress, undiagnosed depression, or the neurological aftermath of childhood trauma that Miss Irina will explain. In my practice, I see the same teen who was ashamed for obesity later appearing with a vaping habit, having switched addictions when the bullying became unbearable. The pathways are disturbingly predictable. Childhood trauma alters brain chemistry, making substance more addictive, while obesity-related bullying increases social isolation. Academic pressure mounts with no healthy outlets provided. When we when we suspend students for smoking without asking why they needed to smoke, when we tax cigarettes but underfund school counselors, we are essentially putting bandages on bullet wounds while pretending we have solved the problem.
This is the heartbreaking reality, where obesity and smoking are often just the visible symptoms of invisible childhood wounds. Neurological research shows that trauma like abuse, neglect, or chronic bullying actually rewires developing brains to crave the dopamine hits from junk food and nicotine. The abused child becomes the anxious teen who overeats to calm their hypervigilant nervous system. Meanwhile, the neglected students becomes the smoker seeking peer acceptance they never got at home. In Malaysia, we compound this by dismissing mental health as weakness and pressuring survivors to forgive and forget for family harmony. The result is teens acting out their pain through self-destructive behaviors, while the adults punish their behaviors instead of healing the pain. My trauma survivors in obesity and smoking cessation programs aren't lacking disciplines. They are lacking the secure attachments and coping skills that should have been their birthright.
So, where do we go from here? From the obesity perspective, our path forward must be threefold. First, we need school cafeterias that provide affordable, nutritious meals. It's not just remove junk food. Second, physical education must evolve beyond fitness tests to include stress-reducing activities like yoga. Third, and most crucially, every weight management program must incorporate mental health screening because we'll never solve Malaysia's obesity crisis if we keep treating bodies while ignoring the traumatized minds with them.
As a psychologist, I propose three paradigm shifts. First, we must replace punitive approaches to teen smoking with trauma-informed interventions. Second, schools need stress labs, teaching healthy coping skills as rigorously as they teach math. Third, we must train parents to recognize when their children's behavior is a cry for help rather than defiance. The teen smoking behind the school isn't a problem, but they are a person trying to solve their problem the only way they know how.
From the trauma perspective, healing requires three revolutions. First, we must make mental health services as accessible as fast food in every neighborhood. Second, teachers need trauma spotting skill as much as lesson planning skills. Third, we must challenge our cultural reluctance to discuss emotional pain because silence fuels these destructive cycles. Remember, the overweight child and the teen smoker are often the same wounded soul at different stages of their pain journey. Together, these three perspectives form our roadmap. Nurture the body, calm the mind, and heal the heart. When we implement Badaria's nutritious solutions, combine them with psychological support from Mr. Zidane, and ground everything in my trauma-informed approach, We don't just treat the symptoms. We build a healthier generations. The time for isolated solution is over. Now, the era of integrated healing begins tonight.
Looks like we have reached the end of our talk show. Thank you, Miss Padaria and Miss Irdina, for such a great speech. As we have discussed tonight, obesity, smoking, and childhood trauma are not separate issues. They are deeply interconnected, and addressing them requires a multifaceted approach. Obesity is not just about personal choices, but it is influenced by the environment, access to healthy food, and the emotional well being of the teenager. While smoking is not merely a habit, but it is often a response to stress, peer influence, and family exposure. And at the same time, childhood trauma is not just a past event, but it continues to shape behavior, self esteem, and coping mechanisms in adolescence and beyond. If we truly want to help teenagers, we need long term and structural solutions. Schools must, schools must have prioritized both mental and physical health. Meanwhile, parents and guardians must be aware of how their actions shape their children's habits. Policymakers need to enforce regulations that make healthier choices easier and more accessible to parents, teachers, and policymakers. Listen to teenagers, create healthier environments, make mental health support more accessible. Only by working together, we can break this cycle and help teenagers build a healthier and brighter future. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.